This microdosing is a thing that a lot of the guys in Silicon Valley are doing. They're taking microdoses of magic mushrooms, which is psilocybin. So they're microdosing psilocybin because psilocybin has been proved to open up pathways in your brain that you can't normally access. They also create new neural networks inside of your brain as well. The new neural networks they create in your brain are ones that have never been exposed inside of your mind before. You can actually show the differences between somebody who's been exposed to psilocybin and somebody who hasn't inside of the brain scan. And then if you take somebody and you give them a dose of psilocybin and then you throw them inside of an MRI and you do brain scans, their brain looks like a fucking Christmas tree that's been lit up compared to like a regular person's brain. I mean, you're still firing like normally, like you're supposed to, but the psilocybin makes it to where your brain just lights up like a fucking Christmas tree. You've got all these different neural pathways and everything else that just light up. Because psilocybin acts as can substitute for serotonin inside of your brain, so it can run around and do that. It can also help carry it just helps open up all your brain. And I remember watching the whole damn thing. I'll have to go back through and watch the whole Joe Rogan thing, but it was really entertaining to watch because the only reason I started watching it was because Joe Rogan. It was the headline of one of the Joe Rogan clips was Joe Rogan finds out what the largest organism on the planet is. Well, I already knew because it was a mushroom. I already knew that because mushrooms grow underground and all their tendrils go out and about, and then they just become big old thing. And then but they're all back at like one root system, but their root system underneath the ground stretches out huge. And I don't remember what the biggest one is, but it was funny just to watch his reaction. Well, it turns out the video that I was watching turned out to be he's a licensed through the federal government mushroom researcher. So he researches psilocybin and all kinds of the different mushrooms and stuff like that to do that kind of stuff. So it was pretty fascinating, all truth be told.
Yeah.
But yeah, so microdosing's a big thing because psilocybin acts like that inside of your brain. Microdosing's really, really big in the like the tech world and big achievements and stuff like that. Those guys are all microdosing.
Not only that, though, it's also showing to help with like depression, anxiety, like a lot of shit. What's the thing where you have seizures randomly? Epilepsy.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It's really, really interesting. They're doing a ton of research now on it. There's like actual studies, which is kind of interesting. They're finally allowing that to happen.
Well, yeah, because Colorado, I know at least the city of Denver. I don't know if it was the whole state, but I know at least the city of Denver is decriminalized. And then Oakland decriminalized it as well. And then Washington State's got it up for the ballot. I believe they got enough signatures for it to be on the ballot this fall. And they will be voting on it this fall. But a lot of the researchers have been getting into it for like PTSD and stuff like that, because it's really, really good for PTSD. That's one of the big things. Microdosing with PTSD, as well as going through psychiatric counseling, can really help people process through their PTSD.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest things that's being used for right now is PTSD.
So there was a SEAL who was recently on Jocko's podcast, and
you're obsessed with that guy,
dude. I love Jocko, dude. He's interesting as hell. But no, there was a SEAL who was on his podcast, and the guy got shot 28 times and lived.
No shit.
Yeah, he breached a room, got shot 28 times, killed everyone in the room. One of his Iraqi guys that was with him died. Another one got shot and launched out of the room, essentially, saving his life, and then one other SEAL died on that op. And this guy, like, grew up, his dad was beating the fuck out, like legit beating the crap out of him. An abusive, horrible father. Would tie him up down in, like, the basement and beat the fuck out of him. So he had, like, in reality, he had a fuck ton of PTSD, and he started, like, doing more natural things after he got out of the military to try to, like, it wasn't to help with it, just to kind of, like, broaden his horizons, but it turned out it helped a lot. So he does all that type of stuff. I don't know if he does psilocybin, but, like, he found a lot of, like, more natural, what do you call them? Remedies.
Yeah.
Helped him with working through all of his PTSD and everything. So it's looking like a lot more people are doing that nowadays, which is nice.
Well, and the other thing too is, especially with like psilocybin and shit, that whole mushroom thing that I was watching on Joe Rogan, there was a lot more to it than just psilocybin.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was talking about like lion's mane. And lion's mane is supposed to be another big one that's completely non-psychoactive. And it's supposed to be really, really good for like health, brain cognitivity, and all that other kind of shit too.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where that one's supposed to be. I actually suggested that one to my ex-wife because her family has a history of like Alzheimer's and dementia, and it scares the shit out of me. I don't want her to end up like that because I don't want my son to lose his mom.
That is one of the scariest ways to go.
It is one of the scariest ways to go, and it's really funny because. Hey, that makes. But yeah, no. So the lion's mane, that was something I was looking into because that was something that worried me with her. Was the lion's mane?
Well, just Alzheimer's in general. Alzheimer's and dementia, they're fucking scary. That's one of the few ways I don't want to go. I have to admit.
No,
I'd rather gruesome, terrible, whatever, rather than that. That's not losing your memory of your family.
Yeah,
It sounds hellish.
Right, just losing your mind in general. I always told everybody if my mind starts going like if you don't do it, I will do it. You better take me out back and shoot me because when my mind goes, I'm done. Because my mind is something I value over just about everything else. As far as me personally is concerned, I value my mind over everything else.
Well, this brings up Muskie Boy, the old Muskie Boy.
Muskie Boy?
Elon Musk.
Oh!
Dude,
yeah.
Did you hear?
I'll tell you what. That guy is on psilocybin. There is no way that motherfucker is not on some form of mushroom supplement.
That guy's special, dude.
Because that man is on
You hear what he's
whole
doing?
other level.
You hear what he's doing?
Which time? What most recently?
Most recently,
I
he's
heard
talking
what he's
about
doing.
fucking cutting a hole in your skull, putting some probes in it, and solving. Basically, so initially it was to solve paralysis, right? So say you're paralyzed from the waist down, right?
Yeah.
Well, basically you'd put receptors in your legs and then put some receptors in your brain. They would link, and then you would have function of your legs back like it would normally be. And the weird side effect he was predicting would be possible heightened IQ, kind of. Like,
Well,
yeah,
if you're stimulating different parts of the brain, you could potentially do that.
Yeah, but later down the line, he was talking about it possibly solving dementia issues.
I could see that.
Solving, like there's just this huge list. It is scary cool. Like,
Well, but that's the problem is invasive brain surgery like that and getting people to get involved in
End of
because
the
they've
year.
already been doing that.
clinical trials at the end of the year.
Well, but they've already been doing that to a certain extent
Oh,
with like machinery because they've got it. There was something I watched. It had this lady on it. It was something on the Science Channel. It was like a documentary or something. But they had this. It was either this lady or this dude. But they had they had these wires run into the back of her brain, and they had her controlling an arm. And certain thought patterns would do that. Certain thought patterns would cause the machine to work.
Yes.
And it was just one of those. It was almost like going through. Well, it was physical therapy, except instead of using your actual limb, you were learning to use an electronic one. But yeah, they put her through that, and that's something they've been playing with for a while. I mean, I was probably back in the early 2000s. I was watching stuff like that.
That shit is so cool.
But yeah, it's amazing. Well, and you know what's funny too? Back to like the mushroom topic too, like with the psilocybin and shit. One of the things that there was the guy that was actually on Joe Rogan. One of the things that we were watching. One of the things that he was talking about was his first experience with psilocybin. He had a really bad stutter when he was a kid. And because psilocybin can rewrite neural pathways and open up normal pathways in your head, well, the first time he did them, he bought like, a bag full of like 20 bucks. He was like, it was probably an ounce. It was probably like fucking 25 grams worth of mushrooms he ate the very first time, and he had this freaking crazy ass out of body overnight experience, And he, the next day after, I mean, he went through all night out in the woods, and there was this lightning storm. It was just one of those, like, epic stories, you know?
Yeah.
And he said the very next day he went up in there, and the lady, this girl that he'd always fancied, that he'd always been sweet on, he never could look her in the eye when he talked to her because it would make him nervous, which with you making stutterer nervous, it just makes the stutter even worse. Well, she asked him, hey, she walks up, he's walking down the street, and she walks up to him because he's on his way home.
Yeah.
He walks up to her and he goes, hey, how you doing today? And he looks her dead in the fucking eye and is able to respond. I'm like, you know what? He's like, I'm doing great. Today's a really good day. And, I mean, unless he's really drunk and at a bar with a shit ton of people, because he's one of those. He said he's a martial artist. And apparently, this is something martial arts. I knew it from the military. It's called situational awareness. Yep. It's knowing what's going on out here all the time. And apparently, that's something you pick up in martial arts too. But that's what he said. He said that's about the only time his stutter ever gets bad is when that's happening. And it's just because his brain's processing everything that's going on around him at the same time as trying to have a conversation with you, and that ends up turning him into mushmouth. Mm-hmm. So. But yeah, that was one of the things, the psilocybin, one of the things that it was supposed to help him with.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, that's what helped him with, and that's one of the things, that's why he was so big on it, and trying to, that's why he's such a proponent for it. He's a licensed through the government. Like, he actually has a bunch of different patents too. He actually, one of the mushrooms he found actually helped combat, anthrax. It was chickenpox or smallpox, because that was one of the big things we were worried about, because nobody gets a smallpox vaccine anymore because we basically eliminated it. So that was one of the big things we were worried about with terroristic threats, and he came up with some fucking mushroom that helped with all of that. So he's like documented, like, yeah, he was like the guy. He's the mushroom guy. When they think mushrooms might be able to help with something, they're the guy. He's the guy the government calls.
Yeah.
But he also gets to experiment with, every type of mushroom.
Well, that's why I kind of like the concept of them doing like actual clinical research on it. You know.
Oh, absolutely.